And now let's talk about Jacob Cowing, because last night George Kittle talked very highly of Lenore, but he also talked and kind of tossed in a little bit of info about second-year wide receiver Jacob Cowing. A lot of the attention's on Ricky Pearsall, first-round pick. He got shot last year, came on late during the season. But San Francisco may need some help at receiver as soon as week 1, knowing no Brandon Aiyuk, maybe no Demarcus Robinson, and you just don't know what the preseason holds for injuries, and maybe you just never know, right? Something could happen. In San Francisco, I think amongst the fan base, they think that the wide receiver group, although when they're fully healthy, may be strong, immediately, people would like some help. I've heard fans say, go sign Keenan Allen. And I'd balk at the idea of that, but you've heard some fans say, why didn't they get Devontae Adams during the offseason? And they tried, they lowballed him, but I think for a good reason. San Francisco would really, really love for a player like Jacob Cowing to become this next, I don't want to say star, but become a more serious contributor for them in year number 2. Now, last year, in last year's draft, midday pick, day 2 pick, he was brought in, undersized guy, smaller dude, right? He's 5'9", 171 pounds. The expectations weren't super high, knowing you had Aiyuk that you thought be healthy for the whole year, but he wasn't. You drafted Pearsall, you had Deebo Samuel, you had Jauan Jennings. There wasn't really an instant place to put Cowing, but as guys have left, been traded, gotten hurt, Cowing has become one of the bigger question marks in year 2. And good news for the Cowing truthers out there, because according to George Kittle last night, Jacob Cowing has bulked up heading into year number 2. Now, one of the reasons why Cowing didn't play last year a lot, because he was just too small. When you're 5'9", 170 pounds, you're going to get played off the field by cornerbacks, linebackers, defensive linemen. Just your size alone really doesn't play in the NFL. Guys that are 5'9", under 180 pounds. In fact, he was almost under 170 pounds. He was 171 pounds. Those guys usually, 1, don't play, and 2, usually don't last very long. So to hear he bulked up, I'm hoping around 180, maybe 185. That to me is, if it's true, a massive deal for San Francisco. I think it's a big improvement for Jacob Cowing, getting his body right, getting to an accurate NFL build, if you will. Again, you're 5'9", that's really small. That's always going to stay and remain that way. But if you can get bigger and stronger and more dense, you are going to find yourself not being moved off the football, being able to sustain blocks, no block, no rock. When you're 171, usually you can't block even if you're trying. And if you're 185, 182, whatever it may be, and you've added 10 pounds of muscle, it'll be a little harder to move you around if you are a defensive back against Jacob Cowing, and it'll help Cowing remain or stay on the field, or at least gain a spot to become a potential contributor for them, not just on punt returns and kick returns. Now, I think this is a pleasant surprise, because not that I've kind of written off Jacob Cowing, but when you're 5'9", 171 pounds, they drafted Pearsall, they draft Jordan Watkins, they draft Junior Burgeon, they signed Demarcus Robinson. You start to think maybe the writing's on the wall for an undersized player that is probably going to need, maybe 2 to 3 years to actually become something. Then at that point in time, they're in the last year of their contract, and it's like, whatever. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. Although I do think Cowing can be a really good player for San Francisco, there's limitations to his game. But with Aiyuk likely out to November, with Demarcus Robinson probably out for the first near month of the season, and you have games against Seattle and against the Cardinals and against the Jaguars and against the Rams and the Saints, you're going to need somebody to step up, not named Jauan, Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall. Now, that could be Tariq Owens. That can be Isaiah Hodgins, Russell Gage, Trent Taylor's back. That can be Jordan Watkins, Junior Burgeon, or that can be a player like Jacob Cowing. And I think, albeit a small role for him to hopefully find a spot on the roster, San Francisco, as of now, doesn't have a gadget wide receiver. Yes, Pearsall can do some of those things, but not really what you want him doing for you. You have Guerrero and you have McCaffrey, and they can be utilized in kind of that route, but you primarily want CMC being the running back, then the screen guy, or you want him being the check down option for you. And you also want to limit how much he gets the football, knowing he had 2 pretty serious injuries last season. However, you lose Deebo Samuel on top of that. You don't have the end around guy. You don't have the wide back role per se, albeit I don't want that back in the offense. You don't have a wide receiver that can give you 4.3 speed on an end around out of the backfield. You don't have that designated player on the offense. And I think Kyle, although doesn't need that as an offensive coordinator, it certainly helps to have another weapon in the fold for you if you are Kyle Shanahan. And it certainly will help you when that guy can run 4.3. Now, he may not be a big, strong dude to run through some guys. You may have to have Pearsall and Jennings and Robinson and Kittle, step up their game even higher as a blocker because Cowing's not going to bowl through somebody else on the defensive side. But I think if Cowing can find a role on the offense, there's room early in the year to do that. And here he bulked up to who knows how much higher of a weight it is. I think it's a good sign. Now, last year he played 15 games. He caught 6 passes. There were glimpses, and you'd sit back and go, wow, okay, he can play. And then you wouldn't see him for the next 3 or 4 games. And we all say, why are we not, showcasing these guys some more and getting them more reps, knowing that they can use them. And so I'm hoping this preseason and OTAs and training camp, we do see Cowing put forth the effort. He's been in there with Pearsall, with Kittle, catching balls from Brock Purdy the entire offseason. He's laying the foundation for a bigger role in 2025. And my hope is at least that he can kind of grab onto that brass ring and take over some sort of role in the offense, especially while Robinson and Aiyuk are probably going to be out for the first month or so of this year. So I'm hoping that's the case, but you never know what can happen in OTA's training camp and preseason. But my eyes are going to be on Jacob Cowing as the offseason workouts approach. And of course, when those 3 preseason games come and go this season,